No.
Good evening. My name is Raven Garland. This is Golden Speakers Toastmasters. We meet every Tuesday evening at 7:45 in the refrigerated room of Hy-Vee. It's right at the end of the ice cream aisle. I would like to introduce our president, Jean Symington Craig.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. We're in the in-between week, in between Christmas and New Year's. We're recovering from all the things that we did at Christmas and preparing for all the things we're going to do on New Year's Eve. We have a fair number of people who are traveling, who are hosting relatives and such and so forth. But we welcome everybody that's here tonight. We do have a very good lineup tonight, having Dan Craig and Will Burns speaking. Let's see, just for those of you, if you may be tuning in for the first time, this is Golden Speakers Toastmasters of Fairfield. We meet every Tuesday evening, 7:45 to 9:15 in the Hy-Vee Community Room, which is located on the west side of the store, off of the ice cream aisle. And I think I heard you say that already. And you're back, and Raven is back, and she says that part. I haven't had somebody saying that part. So that's really important. So it's been said twice now how to get here. So really take it into under advisement at this time. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. And that's what we do. And Mr. Miller.
Greetings.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, very good. Happy New Year. I think without further ado, we need some toast. And to help us with our toast is our Toastmaster for the evening, Raven Garland.
Before we get to the main part of the meeting, which is the prepared speeches, I would like to introduce our role players. First of all, we have a timer, and I guess that will be Will Burns.
Good enough on the
No,
seat.
Jean, it'll be Jean.
No, that will be
0% Jean is Will Burns. Yes, I'm Jean Craig.
So,
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'll be timing the various parts of the meeting tonight. We have 2 speeches tonight, general prepared speeches. One will be 5 to 7 minutes. The green light will go on at 5 minutes. 5 minutes. The yellow light will go on at 6 minutes, and the red light will go on at 7 minutes, and we'll stay on until the end of the speech. We have another speech that is 7 to 9 minutes from Will. So the green light will go on at 7 minutes, the yellow light will go on at 8 minutes, and the red light will go on at 9 minutes, and we'll stay on till the end of the speech. Our speech evaluators, the green light will go on at 2 minutes, the yellow light will go on at 2.5 minutes, and the red light will go on at 3 minutes. If we have table topics tonight, we may need to work on that just a little bit. The table topics are our impromptu speeches. The green light goes on at 1 minute, the yellow light goes on at 1 minute 30 seconds, and the red light goes on at 2 minutes. I will be giving a report at the end of the meeting.
thank you, Jean. Next, I would like to introduce our grammarian for the evening, Art Atkinson.
Toastmasters, the role of a grammarian is twofold. One part of my role is to listen carefully to the language that people use and to note any particularly colorful or memorable phrases, and in the rare occasion when there might be some misuse of English or some grammatical error, to note those and to include those in my report at the end of the meeting. The other part of my role is to introduce the word of the day. In keeping with tonight's theme of beginnings, I've chosen the word inaugurate, a verb, which means to mark the beginning of something, a project or organization. It has many possible uses, and there are many forms of the word. There's inaugural, there's the inaugurator. I will note anybody's use of any form of the word inaugurate and include that in my report at the end of the meeting. So have at it.
Thank you, Art. The next role, the ah counter, will be taken by Ryan Connor-Miller.
Good evening, Toastmasters, guests, viewers at home on this holly jolly Christmas. This is, well, whatever. It's snowing, which is nice. I'm glad for that. And I will be counting the ahs, uhs, ums, likes, you knows, so's, but, and tongue clicks and false starts in the speeches tonight, the prepared speeches, as well as the evaluations of those prepared speeches. So if you have any use of these filler words, I will count it and let you know at the end of the meeting in a friendly way so you can pay attention to the next time you're speaking and try to reduce these words in your speech. Thanks.
Thank you, Prana. Our general evaluator this evening will be the esteemed Louis Denbaum. And we will have a joke at the end, also given by Ryan Connor-Miller. I would now like to inaugurate the speech section of our meeting. I would call up the evaluator for the first speech, Stuart Stroud.
Toastmaster. I am pleased to note this evening's meeting was inaugurated with humor, mentioning that we were beside the refrigeration section. I always love it when an event starts off with smirks and giggles and even explosive laughter. I'm very excited to evaluate Mr. Dan Craig, who's giving a speech number 3 from the storytelling manual, something I'm on the verge of completing. He's going to do the moral of the story, an original story. Dan Craig has lived in Fairfield since 1983 and been a member of Golden Speakers for 5 years, where he has held several officers' positions. He is married to Jean Symington Craig, and they have 2 small dogs, Aubrey and Porter. For his part, Dan's love of dogs began with his first dog, Toby, who is the subject of tonight's talk. The title of the talk is, "What's That Smell?" You just know it's going to be good. What I'll be looking for is if the story is presented simply and clearly, did the speaker capture and hold the interest of the audience and the evaluator? Were all of the elements of a good story included, plot, scene, characters, action, etc.? If not, which ones were missing, and did this affect the story, and so on? How did the speaker use vocal variety to add to the story? And what was the twist to the story? Was it successful? And if not, why not? And that concludes. Oh! Apologies, viewers at home and distinguished Toastmasters. Let me introduce Dan Craig.
Could we all move forward? That would be nice. How close do you want me? Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. I once had a dog named Toby, and this is the story of an adventure we had and a lesson I learned from it. There are two things you need to know about Toby before you can understand this story. The first thing is that he was a Sheltie, a Shetland sheepdog, which is a working breed dog that needs a lot of exercise. Unfortunately, whenever he would smell a deer, he was gone chasing it. Many times he was gone several hours, and in one case he was gone for several days. The other trait that's important to note that Toby had was that he just didn't have any common sense about where to stick his nose. I saw him more than once chase down a cat, corner it, and then lean slowly for a little sniff. It did not work out well, but he never seemed to learn. Now that you know those two things about Toby, I can tell you that one summer evening, we were taking a walk in the country. I had him on a retractable leash because he had run away once too often. He could run out on the leash, come back, go this way, go that way. I felt like he got some exercise, even though I still had him under control. We lived out in the country on a private property that had a long half-mile stretch of paved road. We'd walk back and forth on that in the evenings. That particular evening, we either walked longer or we started later, but at any rate, when we turned for home, it was pitch dark. There was no moon. I hadn't thought to bring a flashlight. It must have even been cloudy because Toby was just a few feet ahead of me on the lead. I could feel him there, but I could really just barely see him. We knew the road. We could feel it under our feet, but we couldn't see anything. We could just hear the sounds of summer, the frogs and the crickets and so on. Suddenly Toby pulled the lead all the way out. I had no idea what was going on, but then he yelped as if he was in real pain, and I was afraid of what had happened, but I couldn't see. And then almost immediately, this big, nasty cloud of stinky skunk. Toby had been sprayed by a skunk. I never saw it. I don't know which direction it ran off. I wasn't sprayed, but he evidently caught it right in the front, around his face. We made our way back home. It was at night, so I couldn't go to the vet for any kind of assistance. But I had this tidbit stored away in my mind that tomato juice had acid in it that would counteract the smell of a skunk. I had never tested it, but I had heard it and I believed it. So I put Toby in the backyard, I got my car and drove to the store. It was the old Easter store, which was once part of this building that's now Hy-Vee. So I went to the vegetable area and found gallon cans of tomato juice. I put four gallons of tomato juice in my cart, went up to the checkout line. I'm standing there waiting to check out, and suddenly a clerk 2 aisles over looks up and says, "What's that smell?" I was embarrassed to realize that Toby was not the only one that was carrying a skunk smell that night. So I spoke up, I said, "I guess it's me, my dog was sprayed by a skunk." And then I realized that the people that were in my line had been kind of edged back away from me. The checkout, the cashier at my line was just going into double time trying to get my money and get me on my way. So off I went. I was plenty embarrassed, but I felt like at least I'm on my way to give my dog some relief. I'm not really sure how strong the smell was that I left behind, and it's probably just a coincidence that Easter's closed a short time. I got home, brought Toby in from the backyard, I lifted him up, put him in the tub, I rolled up my sleeves, I opened my cans of tomato juice, and I started to pour. He was so miserable. You may know that a dog's nose is at least 10,000 times more sensitive than a human's. And you know what a skunk smells like to us. So imagine if that sensitive nose has been sprayed by this terrible smell. And the look he gave me when I started to pour tomato juice on him, he stuck to high heaven, but now he was orange, and he had chunks of tomato stuck all over. But I was going to make it work, so I massaged. Sheltie has a thick double coat. I was massaging every square inch of him, pouring on more tomato juice, working him over, and finally I realized it didn't work. I gave up. I rinsed him off the best I could. I got a towel, I toweled him down, I got out the hairdryer and started to dry and stopped because warmed up skunk smell is really bad. So I had been led astray by this old wives' tale. The next day, bright and early, I went to the vet. I bought some shampoo designed to take away this odor. I gave him a bath. He finally had his relief. What did I learn from this lesson? Well, it's just that you can't always believe what you hear. Sometimes an old wives' tale is just a tale. Now, in fairness to the old wife, maybe she had a short-haired dog. And maybe it was a near miss on the skunk spectrum. But for Toby and me, it just didn't work. And a more specific lesson, if you have a curious dog and you're walking him at night in Iowa, keep him on a short leash and take a flashlight.
We have 2 minutes to evaluate the speech. Our next evaluator is Emery Styron. He'll be evaluating the speech by Will Burns.
Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. Will be speaking from the Advanced Manual, Speaking to Inform, project number 1, although it's not his first project in the manual. I believe he skipped around a bit. Is that correct, Will?
That is correct.
And the objectives of his speech are to present new and useful information to the audience, to organize that information, to make it easy to understand, and for the audience to retain that information, and to present that information in a way that will help the audience to learn, or motivate the audience to learn. The time of this speech is 5 to 7 minutes.
7 to 9 in this case.
7 to 9, okay. I stand corrected. And Will has supplied me with some interesting information for his introduction, which glad to know. Will Burns was inaugurated into this life on September 24th, 1983 here in Iowa. He had an idyllic childhood with some bumps, as we all have in our teenage years, and was dutifully taking notes in his public speaking class in preparation for a career in federal law enforcement when the Twin Towers fell on 9/11. He enlisted as a military policeman in the U.S. Army Reserve, and while his unit was deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, he was still in training. But he deployed with that unit in 2004 to Iraq as part of the second phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom. His unit was tasked with conducting physical security and internment operations. That experience is going to inform his speech tonight, I suspect. He'll be providing us a framework for thinking about and understanding contemporary security challenges. His speech title is The Concept of Security. Please warmly welcome Will Burns.
was the night of September 26, 1983. A young Russian lieutenant colonel by the name of Stanislav Petrov was just settling in for his shift as watch commander of the Soviet early warning missile system. If he detected an attack, he would have 20 minutes to respond. The margin for error was effectively 0. 5 hours into his 11-hour shift, something that had never happened before occurred. The system went into full alarm. In large red letters, the word launch displayed, and the system indicated a high reliability of an American intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, barreling towards the Soviet Union. Now, Petrov had a decision to make. Again, the margin for error here was effectively 0. There was no time to double check the data, let alone seek negotiation with the United States. However, if he did nothing and was wrong, he would have left his country defenseless, an act tantamount to treason. Now, his gut instinct was that this was in error, but he could find nothing to confirm that in the data. So after a few moments, he called his superiors and stated categorically that it was a false alarm. There was, he stated, no attack. Petrov waited an agonizing 23 minutes, the missile's estimated time to target, before he realized that he'd been right. And though few people realized it at the time, thanks to Petrov, the world avoided World War III and potential nuclear annihilation. The story was taken from an article by Max Fisher entitled How World War III Became Possible. Now tonight I will be speaking about the concept of security, 4 points to think about in the face of modern contemporary security challenges and tragedies, like the San Bernardino shootings, the Paris attacks. And while the examples I'm going to use are mainly from the national security sphere, this also applies to other spheres as well, in terms of a whole spectrum concept. So physical, personal security, as well as online or network security. That's what happens when an online service or brick and mortar suffers a security breach, putting the financial data of millions at risk. These points are paraphrased from Snyder on Security, an introductory primer on the concept of security by security rock star and researcher Bruce Snyder. They are: number 1, security is a trade-off. There is no such thing as absolute security. All of life involves risk, and all of security involves trade-offs. We get security by giving something up: time, money, convenience, capabilities, liberties. Sometimes we make these choices consciously, and sometimes these are made unconsciously. After that all too close nuclear call, leaders on both sides of the Iron Curtain made the choice to exchange the rapid strike nuclear capability that they had for additional safeguards to ensure that the false positive threat was better managed. Number 2, you are a security consumer. You too get to make security decisions and trade-offs, whether they be personal, corporate, national, so on. Is this security measure effective? Is not a good question to ask. It's far better to ask, is this a good trade-off? Now, it's important to realize that this is a very subjective thing, because there's not always one answer to it, because the costs are not objective. Just as one person might value convenience, a sense of security more than another person, different people will make different security trade-offs. Number 3, security is a system. People often think of security in terms of attacks and defenses, but it's not that simple. The best way to think about security is in terms of the larger system. For example, in bank security, bank vault security is more than just a metal box. the same way that identity system is more than just the ID card. Understanding the broader picture is a much more complete picture. Two differing systems of this can be seen when looking at airport security. While in the US model, a certain portion of that security system is dedicated to security theater, where the young and the elderly are given pat downs, and where you can only have containers of 3.4 ounces of liquid, unless said container is marked saline solution, in which case, due to medical exemption, whatever's in there can be carried up to 12 ounces. Now, what this has done, this has given the perception of the general public that something is being done, because I have to take off my shoes, empty my pockets into the bin, and go through the full body scanner. I must be safer. Contrast that with the Israeli approach to airport security, which says that any physical security system can be breached given sufficient time and planning. So the approach there is to instead give routine and non-routine interrogation or interviews throughout the process of the traveler's route through the trip. Now, in service to this, because of the resources and the training that this takes, a system of risk allocation is held to, where those prisoners who raise no red flags move smoothly through the process, while those that raise an alarm are allocated additional resources in terms of being interrogated. In service to this, profiling of passengers is routinely done. It's important to bear in mind that while Israel has one major international airport with 2 more on the way and a handful of domestic ones, the US has 52 major international airports. So it's not feasible in terms of a resource to take that over here and bring it over here. Furthermore, there is a personal liberty challenge that have to be traded off for that, because in this country, the routine profiling of passengers would be challenged. 4, technology creates security imbalances. The thing about technology is that it changes trade-offs. It makes something cheaper or more expensive. It makes it faster, it makes or slower. It can make attacks easier or it can make defenses easier. And it's important with the rapid changing technological advancements that we keep track of what's happening today. As an example, you can find on the earlier story. After the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1960s, 2 red phones were installed in the Kremlin and White House, respectively, to take advantage of the technological advancement of telecommunications in diffusing tensions. However, by the 1980s, with the rapid potential of ICBMs to deliver destruction and turn cities to ash in a matter of minutes, that was defused and created a dangerous offensive security imbalance. Once again, these 4 points were: security involves trade-offs, you are a consumer, security consumer, security is a system, and technology creates security imbalances. While it may seem like life is spinning further and further out of control in comparison to halcyon days in the past, ladies and gentlemen, that is not the case. There is a bright, bold future for all of us ahead if we can temper our fears and rely on seasoned judgment, the best tool in the concept of security. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Will now, timer, would you please give us 2 minutes to evaluate the speech? Thank you. Madam Timer, could you please tell us which speaker is qualified?
Both Dan and Will qualified.
Then we will now take a minute to vote for the best speaker. That would be Dan or Will. I would now like to call up our general evaluator, Louis Denbaum, to conduct the evaluation section of our meeting.
Good evening, club members, viewers at home. Evaluation is a critical part of being in Toastmasters. We're all here to improve our public speaking abilities. The way we do that is prepare speeches and then receive feedback that allows us to improve. Our first evaluator is Duard Stroud.
Thank you, Mr. General. Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home, Dan Craig's speech was delightful for so many reasons, and I'm going to tell my sister about it very soon. She would very much enjoy that. What's that smell? First of all, my attention was immediately grabbed, and it's something that anyone who's ever been a pet owner or around a pet owner can immediately and sensory relate to. So that was clever and well done. It was a story presented simply and clearly. It was very direct, as I just went into, accessible to all, and therein was a lot of its charm. You know, there it is. It's something that's easily relatable, and I'm sure great fun to deliver. It looked like he was having a very good time. Both spoken and body language were used to illustrate the action moments in the story, which leads us to how the speaker captured and held the interest. Good use of humor, body language. The use of humor, he said the dog didn't use the nose wisely, and so it led the dog and the owner into these ridiculous situations, which is always great fun to hear about, leading to the skunk experience. And I loved how he used his body to emphasize the activity, holding the leash, being pulled by the dog. The person over the shelf wondering, what's that smell? And And I also learned, another thing that held my attention was that he said that the dog has a sense of smell 10,000 times stronger than a human. Were all the elements of a good story included, plot, setting, characters, action, etc.? Was anything missing? How did it affect the story? For me, no element was missing. There was nothing in it or absent from it that distracted my enjoyment of the storytelling. Did the speaker use vocal variety to add to the story? A great example of how he did was when he got to the description of the skunk, and his voice got louder as he described the smell. It was strong and stinky. You know, again, he used descriptions and words and to give us that smell memory. I'm sure any of us, while we were driving, have come across a skunk or gone over one, or one that was already gone over. And what was the twist to the story? Was it successful? Why or why not? I wasn't aware that there was a twist to the story, but one thing that you could do is you could play around with the structure of the speech and build up. And if there wasn't a twist in the story, as enjoyable as it is without it, what you can do is you can just pull something from another story. You can even create something, fictionalize an event to increase speaker and listener pleasure. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Our next evaluator is Emery Siren.
Thank you, Will. And thank you, Will, for that, those insights into security, a subject that concerns all of us very much in this time of terrorism. There was an awful lot to like about Will's speech. An informative speech really relies on clear organization, and Will's speech was crystal clear in its organization. He opened with a dramatic, gripping anecdote that gave me a flashback into the Cold War fail-safe times of my childhood, and that grabbed us. Then he led from there into 4 specific points. He previewed those 4 points, then he explained those 4 points, then he recapped those 4 points, and then he had a strong close. So, outstanding on the organizational front. And he was also called on to support his points with statistics, quotes, or experts' opinions. And he had his main source right out front of the book. So what made the speech interesting? The anecdote, of course, made it very dramatic. How effectively did the speech opening capture and hold our attention? We've already talked about that very, very much. He had a statement, the system went into full alarm. World War II, World War III was avoided. It's about as dramatic as you can get. Was Will comfortable and familiar with his material? He obviously was. No obvious reliance on notes that I could tell, although he didn't tend to hang back here behind the podium until the end of the speech. But I don't think that was because of notes. Confidence was high. I would have liked to see a little more movement earlier in the speech. The organizational structure, 4 points. Security is a trade-off. You are the security consumer. Security is a system. Technology creates imbalances. And during the discussion of those points, he did refer back to the opening anecdote, which was helpful. How did the speaker encourage the audience to learn? Probably the recap at the end of the 4 points was the strongest way there. He used examples and used simple language that helped us relate what could be a complex topic to our personal experience. He talked bank security is more than a vault. He talked about airport security measures, which we're all familiar with. Compared the U.S. and the Israel airport security systems. What could Will have done to make the talk more effective? Well, I felt your close was very strong, Will, but you brought up tempering our fears and relying on seasoned judgment only at the end, and I didn't find any build or support toward those points in the body of your speech. And I think another thing that would have helped would be a simple flip chart or slides that keep those points in front of us. Your strongest assets, your passion for the subject, and your deep knowledge of it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Emery. At this point in our meeting, we usually have table topics. Madam President, would you like me to do some table topics?
Are you prepared to have some table topics?
I'm prepared to have some table topics.
Okay, great, let's do it.
Okay. All righty. So, I'm just going to take a volunteer and I'm going to present you with a question. Who doesn't have a speaking role tonight? Jean Symington Craig. There's nobody evaluating, so let it all hang out. We're getting ready to inaugurate a new year. And it's traditional in many places to inaugurate the new year with a party. tell us about your most memorable New Year's Eve party. Or segue.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. In my mind, I'm quickly cleaning up this one party that I will tell you about. It was memorable because not only is it the end of the year, but it's the beginning of the new year, so many people will choose that time to stop a bad habit. And this particular New Year's Eve, I had decided that I was going to stop cigarette smoking. I was in college, I was in the South, cigarettes are a dime a dozen, they were cheap, but I wanted to stop. It was ridiculous. I had a grandfather that had advanced emphysema, even though he quit smoking many, many, many years ago. I'm supposedly intelligent. What am I doing smoking? So I decided I was going to stop. But hey, midnight is a long way off. So I proceeded to pretty much chain smoke for 3 or 4 hours, just because this is it, get it out of your system. I made myself really sick. Not a great idea. And I did quit. I did stop. I would say that the moral of the story would be, it wasn't the greatest in terms of fun, it's probably the angle that you were looking for. But it was something that showed me that if you do make a decision to stop something and allow yourself to go right up to that point, doing whatever you're doing, because you promised yourself you're going to quit after that, that it can be done. It does work. And there it is. So be evil up until midnight, and then turn the new page.
All right. Okay. Who's next? Looks like Art volunteered. So as Jean mentioned, part of inaugurating a new year is New Year's resolutions. In your opinion, are New Year's resolutions helpful or hurtful?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, Table Topics Master. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. The delay there was for me to just capture one particularly memorable little phrase that Jean just used. Do I think the New Year's resolutions are inherently helpful or harmful? I tell you, in my experience, what's harmful about New Year's resolutions is making them and then failing to keep them. And the damage that we do to ourselves, kicking ourselves for having fouled up. It's pretty much universal that people make significant New Year's resolutions. It's a cultural tradition that we make significant New Year's resolutions. I think the most popular ones are to stop a bad health habit like smoking or overeating or some negative health habit, to make more money, to spend more time with family and less in the office. And the damage that we do to ourselves is not from making the resolution, but it's from not actually putting a plan in place. This is how I'm actually going to do it. Now, I don't know how Jean was able to make herself sick enough that she could just decide, I'm over it and done with it. I have heard that smoking is an addiction more difficult to kick than heroin. Apparently not. she just got herself sick enough to be fed up with it and went cold turkey, if we can believe the story. Looks like I'm done. She's got the time. Anyway, a sensible person would make a New Year's resolution about something important to them, and then actually lay a plan in place and find an accountability partner, somebody that's going to talk to them on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 40. Okay, have you done your plan? Are you on track? And give himself liberty to get off track and get back on track and actually implement the plan. Mr. General Evaluator.
I believe she gave up heroin the year before. Jean, how are we doing on time?
We are at 38. Is that what you're
We
asking?
got another one.
38.
Yeah.
We have a couple more.
Okay, great. I see a volunteer right there. Wow. Okay. So, inauguration. We also inaugurate a president. Tell us your opinions on what is going on with our presidential elections.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics. Fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, I did not expect to be given this platform, but I am happy to take it. If my opinion counts, here's my chance to spread it around. I think that it has been quite a fiasco, this presidential election. It has been very entertaining, but if you really want to be educated about what's going on in the country and what the real issues are, you really have to dig for yourself. And it scares me because I know that a lot of people are kind of in a spell of, I don't know, too much cell phone, too much Facebook, too much television, and they're being fed images and slogans, and the critical thinking isn't there. I also know there are really a lot of intelligent people, and you can find information, and you can find that, in my opinion, there is a very good candidate out there, and that would be Bernie Sanders. He's my guy. I love that he's not afraid to talk about the real issues. I think that this country is really in a lot of trouble with systemic racism is a really big problem. Income inequality is a really big problem. The Affordable Health Care Act has helped a lot. People can get health insurance, but it's still expensive. And I still feel like I can afford the premium, but I can't afford the premium and a doctor's visit. So I'm looking for even, more equitable life for all of us. So I'm hoping that all of you will stay tuned to the elections, dig a little bit deeper, and find out what is really needed. Thank you.
I have to say, in all my years in Toastmasters, that was a first. I've never seen anyone push the table back to do a tabletop. So. Okay, I see a volunteer right here. Wow, right in front of me.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, okay.
Underway.
So, share with us, if you will, and if not, please segue. What are you looking forward to changing for the new year? Whether it's giving something up or bringing something new, more powerful into your life.
All right.
Just give
this year, in terms of taking something from 2015 and really cementing it in my life in 2016, I would like to really find some sort of sustainable job that I can become a master at. And in that sense, not a master like I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm running the whole outfit. I just want to find a job that, I'm gonna have a job, but I wanna find a job that really calls to me and contributes back to the environment, to climate change, or to agriculture, or buildings, something like that. Because that, in my 2015, I found a job that kind of sparked an interest in me. And I was working on this AmeriCorps group, and I really was contributing to people's energy bills and reducing their CO2 footprint and all this stuff. So it meant a lot to me, that job. It really made me feel like, I don't know, like a citizen, esteemed, honorable, not honorable, but esteemed, and like I was really on my path, I guess. So that's one thing that I'd like to take with me, that sense of fulfillment with my job and finding a way to give back. I'm not trying to sound all lofty, give back and everything, but like a way to make other people, to contribute to someone else and to the environment in some way, whether it be local or national. And so taking that, what I like to take with me in 2016 is taking a momentum of just sustainability, and because we live on this planet, and without taking care of it, we're not gonna live here forever. So taking care of the planet sounds huge too, but just it can be as little as installing solar panels, or eating local food, or living in a greenhouse, something sustainable. So for me, I'd like to take with me and transform some environmental part of my life as well as the community. Thank you.
So we're going to have two speakers. One of our evaluators, so
I'm
come up? Okay. Okay. Here's an interesting one. Get in trouble. Make sure that camera's rolling. What changes would you like to see your spouse or children inaugurate in the new year? Good one.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master General Evaluator. And good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests once again. Not guests, but viewers at home. I've spent most of my adult lifetime learning not to impose or expect changes from my family members. And that is, I'm not going to give up that hard-earned knowledge in 2016. To me, that's a lot of maturity, and getting along within a family is to let people be themselves and not be putting pressure on them, trying to make them into what you want them or expect them to be. I have made kind of a personal resolution to do a better job of praising, encouraging, attempting to inspire people to bring out their best, whatever it is. But as far as me pushing for any changes, that are my ideas, I'm not gonna do that.
Very wise man indeed. George, would you like an opportunity?
Sure.
Come on up. Okay. Tell us, what is your ideal way, if you could wave a magic wand, what would be your ideal for bringing in 2016?
Why not invite everyone I know to the convention center or an even larger space? Wave the wand, behold, opulence, shiny things all over, jugglers, court jesters, and treats at every turn. People wandering up to you, offering you things you may or may not enjoy. You might put it in your mouth, you might put it right back on the tray, or in the hand of someone already putting something in the hand of another. Let me add to that pile of yuck. And just various forms of entertainment, and let rooms, large rooms, be full of various entertainment, because as much as one person enjoys the unedited presentation of Hamlet, maybe even by all the favorite Shakespearean actors living and dead, all right, there's a room with Richard Burton's voice booming. It's not for everyone. Maybe a different play in another room. It could be Ionesco or some other absurdist. You could just wander in and not know what's going on, and that's great. There could be a circus. Just to have so many different rooms, so many different opportunity, and more importantly, just the building just filling and almost trembling with laughter. So a good time, a great time was had by all. Thank you, Mr. Table Talks Master.
Thank you. Hope to be invited. Thank you. Okay. Madam Timer, could you please read the names of the people that qualified?
Yes. Everyone qualified. So Jean, Art, Raven, Brian Miller, Emery.
Okay, welcome back. Now it is the time that we get reports from our role players. The first report is from our timer, Jean Symington Craig.
For our speakers, Dan, 6 minutes, 53 seconds. Will, 9 minutes, 22 seconds. Speech evaluators, Deward, 3 minutes, 12 seconds. Emery, did we vote on the evaluator? No, yet, because we still have the general. No, we don't.
Oh, no, yeah, we should vote, that's right, because we're not gonna have a table topics evaluation.
Table topics.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll finish and then we'll vote.
Yeah.
Okay, well, actually, no contest because we only had one qualifier and that was Dewar.
Huh.
And finally, our table topics. Jean, 2 minutes 3, Art, 2 minutes 19, Raven, 1 minute 46, Ryan Miller, 2 minutes 25, Emery, 1 minute 25 seconds, and Dewar, 1 minute 52 seconds.
Thank you. Now it's time for our grammarian report from Art Atkinson.
So tonight was replete with inauguration. I counted 4 from Lou, 1 from Emery, 1 from Raven, 1 from Dewar, and if you attributed one that I didn't catch, say so now, or forever hold your peace. There was also lots of colorful language. Dewar in particular, his whole description of a multi-roomed facility with different entertainments, one appealing to this taste, one appealing to that. It was, I could have, if I could have, I would have gotten down the whole thing. But that was like one stellar example. Emery was an awful lot to like about Will's talk, and I am not going to give up that hard-earned knowledge. Raven, dig a little deeper, and there's been too much cell phone time, Facebook time, TV time. That was colorful. Dan, well, Dan's talk was full of memorable little word pictures, like it's probably a coincidence that Easter closed after I made this visit. Or, well, I have too many here. Overall, Jean said in her talk, "Be evil up to midnight." Will said, apologize, got to put on these things. Petrov's gut instinct was there was no attack. You are a security consumer. We have a bright, bold future if we temper our fears. Things seem to be spinning out of control, but perhaps we feel less secure than in earlier halcyon days. We rarely heard the word halcyon. That was beautiful. And Dan saying in his story that the cashier went into double time to try to complete it and get him out. I'm done.
Thank you. Our counter report from Brian Miller.
This evening, most people that spoke were either very precise or there just wasn't a lot of slips and dips in the uhs and ums and likes, but I'll just do a short summary. Dan Craig, so 2 buts, an and, a false start. Will, 1 but, 1 false start. Dewar, 1 or 2 false starts. You said something like that it was that good, that great. So I don't know if that's like a false start or if it's just emphasis, but I thought it was good either way. Emery, 9 uhs, 2 ums, 1 and, 1 false start. And I had 2 uhs, 1 1 1 so, 1 and 3 Xerox. So apparently that's a filler word. I don't know what it means, but it's in there.
Repeat.
It's a repeat. Thank you. Okay.
It's copyrighted.
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, would you like to come up and do your joke?
I should have
1
stayed up
minute
here.
joke.
Okay. Just stayed up. All right. So I've got a few one-liners I'm just gonna throw out here. In the Chicago Tribune, there was a headline, and this is a real headline. It said, "Agents raid gun shop, find weapons." Okay, so what are they expecting? Finding flowers. Okay. Weapons. Why do doctors make the best Jedi? Anybody?
I don't know.
They have the most patience. Okay. It's a Friday night, and a dyslexic man walks into a bra and asks for the mics. No? Anybody? Okay. All right. You can ask me about that later.
I get it.
Okay. Lastly, a tall girl is chatting on her cell phone.
I get it.
Oh, you get it? Okay. Tall girl is chatting on her cell phone, and she says, she's real chatty, and then she walks into a bar and then asks for some ice. Kind of like dry humor a little bit, something, anybody? Okay, all right, thanks. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
All right.
And now it is time for me to give my comments after Reagan sits down about our meeting and the evaluators. Keep my remarks short. First, we had Dewar. I'm going to comment tonight on actually the introduction of the speaker. So, in your case, I would like to suggest that you read the bio and the objectives a little more slowly. For my taste, you read it fast and a little sing-songish. Okay? So this is an important part of setting the tone for the speaker. So slow it down, please, a little bit. The other thing that, and I'm just, by the way, I'm not doing the Oreo cookie because I'm doing the filling first. So I'd also suggest keeping certain personal comments out of the evaluation because they're not really relevant. So something about, you're going to tell your sister about this. Okay. Not really on point. You use the manual. Great. I love it when people use the manual. You went systematically through it and you gave your opinion on how Dan did. You stated what you liked, and you also demonstrated. So you were saying, I like your gestures, and so you really showed him what you liked, both verbally and you reenacted it, which I thought was great. And you had a suggestion for him. Your suggestion was to maybe rearrange the story or somehow get that twist in there. My main suggestion for you there is to offer a way like how you might have put that rearrangement or twist in, make it a little bit more concrete. All in all, great evaluation. Emery, I'm also going to suggest to you in the reading of the bio and the objectives that maybe you didn't have a chance to read it over before because there was lack of clarity on how much his time was. So, and by the way, that's up to you also, speakers. You want to make your introducers look good so they can make you look good. So get your bios to your evaluators as quickly as possible. Don't wait till the night of the speech. You used the manual. You had recommendations for him. You said that he should move away from the podium. Earlier in his speech, most of his time he spent behind the podium. You used the manual also, went point by point through it. You had a recommendation for him of having a stronger conclusion. Very, very good, astute recommendations as far as I'm concerned. You spent most of your time right here. And you, as many of us, when we're using the manual, we have to read the manual, so we're looking down. But you did look up. And at the very end, you changed your position. I'd like to see you involving more of the audience throughout. And then also use some eye contact rather than just looking up. Look up from the manual, make your point here, here, and there. Again, very strong evaluation. Those are my comments, and now I'd like to turn the meeting back to our Toastmaster, Ray.
Now is the time of the meeting where we get to give out these ribbons here. We have one for best speaker, best evaluator, and best table topics. I just want to say that with the best table topics, everybody that did table topics got at least one vote. But somebody got more than one. Can I have a drum roll? So best table topics, Raven. Best evaluator was also a close call. It was either going to be Dewar or Dewar, and it was Dewar. Now, the next speaker really was close. It was won by one vote, and it goes to Dan.
Hey!
Thank you. Great speeches tonight. It was a great meeting. To close out the meeting, I am going to call on our president, Jean Symington Craig, to come give us some closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. This has been another very interesting meeting. Lots of good information. I want to just say, if you haven't been a timer for a while, I am completely in respect and awe of this job once again. Everyone needs to be in all these jobs for a reason. It's a 5-ring circus, trying to get this to go. I was trying to get just the right angle so I didn't have to stand up to aim at the light, rather because every time I stood up and sat down, the chair squeaked and Dan was breaking up listening to that. Will had to keep coming over telling me to turn the light out. I missed a couple of out of the gates. It's very complicated. So it's fun. It's a good thing. Has anyone in here not been a timer? Oh, you are lucky not to put your hand up. All right. I want to just encourage you, this is our last meeting of 2015. And we're all ready to go forward into the new year. Everyone's looking forward to 2016. But it's also a time to look back 2015. This is the end. It's good to look back and think, where was I at the beginning of 2015? You're doing this, I'm sure, in other areas of your life and profession and all that, but it's also good to look back and see where you were this time a year ago for Toastmasters. What was happening for you? Can you kind of remember what that was like? And then compare that to where you are now, what you're feeling now. How much stronger is your backbone? I'm not just talking about speaking skills, because we are developing that, but it's that confidence that is getting structured in the backbone. I heard an extremely moving story today on NPR by a gentleman named Nick Yaris, who had been on death row, spent 20 years in solitary confinement for a rape murder that he did not commit, tortured, and a movie is coming out, it's called The Fear of 13. I don't quite get what that means, but he was extremely eloquent, and what he talked about was, he was being interviewed on NPR, he was talking about how when he first went into this, he had a very, very low vocabulary. He had very low speaking skills. He said it was just very rough, and he was judged a lot by that. And in his years in solitary confinement, and he thanked this one officer who got him some books, he started to really educate himself. And he talked about 10,000 books later. He's very eloquent. He sounded a little bit like Dewar when Dewar starts talking about Hamlet and Ionesco, and just, so here was someone who was very rough. I'm always impressed. Deward, but here was, not that Deward was rough. I'm talking about the other guy. Anyway, I digress. But he was so eloquent about the value to his life for having learned to speak and articulate for himself. It was incredibly moving. I just thought I would tell you that because it does speak to what we do here. We are learning to speak and communicate and connect with other human beings. Think back where you were at the end of last year at this time. You may not have been a member yet. Emery, were you a member yet? Emery wasn't a member yet. Was anybody else not a member yet?
This year, last time. I
This
mean, this time last year.
this time last year.
This year, last time.
Yeah, this year last time.
I think I was a member in November, so.
Okay, very new, very new. Okay, so just revisit that spot, because when you can appreciate where you've grown, you can now start to say, okay, if this is what happened this year, what do I want to set up for this upcoming year? Can I feel that much better about where I'm going? And of course, Toastmasters is relatively painless in terms of growth. You just do the steps and it builds the muscles. If you just do the steps, it'll build the muscles. I'm not gonna put the charge out to you all because we're in this somewhat diminished population tonight, and next time we'll be into the boom, into the new year. But I do want you to get a head start. Be looking at what you want to accomplish with Toastmasters this upcoming year. Set yourself just sort of try on the idea that you might like to be, where you'd like to be, the next level. If you're a competent communicator, you'd like to be an advanced communicator bronze. You'd like to get your advanced leader bronze. You'd like to be an officer. It's these little steps. That's how I became a DTM. I never went for the DTM. I wasn't thinking that was anything I could do. But I just started to fill in the numbers and do the things, and all of a sudden I started to realize, I bet if I just put a little bit of focus on this, I could actually cross that finish line. And crossing a finish line has value, whatever it is. But when you set something for yourself and then you cross the finish line, it feels great. And it further develops that backbone, that confidence muscle, because if I did it once, I could do it again. And then you've got that self-perpetuating loop. Okay. So on that note, that's where I'm feeling to talk to you guys tonight. I'm so blessed and pleased. I've come from Texas. I've been with Baptists for about a week. So everything is blessed and bless your heart and all of that. But it's true. I do feel that way with our group here. This is a network marketing program, in case you hadn't recognized that. That means one of our biggest ways that we have new members and we fill our seats and we have that much more fun is through our talking and our network marketing. So as you head into the new year and you're partying and you're quitting bad habits, or you're adding new bad habits, or you're adding new things, whatever you're doing, that's work in those opportunities to mention Toastmasters, because we really have some ambitious plans for this upcoming year, and we just are our own best ambassadors. Okay, with that, is there any club business that we have to take care of? Any of the officers, by the way, bing bing, it is first of the month next Tuesday, which means we have our officer meeting at 6:45 right here. And we will be working, all of that, we're going to be putting out some things. We need some help on our special open house, which is February 2nd at the library. Got a great poster coming. It's beautiful. It's almost done. So we'll be pulling you in on that. So just stay tuned, and we appreciate everybody's help. Okay, if there's no club business, all right. Happy New Year, and meeting is adjourned.